Did you know that almost everything you believe about Singapore is completely wrong? Right. So I am a British bloke who packed his bags, flew halfway around the world, and landed in Singapore thinking I already knew exactly what to expect. Strict laws, boring food, a city that fines you for everything, a place that feels more like a giant shopping mall than an actual country. And honestly, I could not have been more wrong. Singapore absolutely blew my mind. Within just the first few weeks of living here, I realized that almost every single thing I had heard back home was either a massive exaggeration, completely outdated, or just plain made up. And I am not alone. Millions of tourists and expats arrive here every single year carrying the same tired myths in their heads. So today, I am breaking all of that down. I have lived here, explored every corner of this incredible island, spoken to locals, and done the research. These are the 10 biggest myths about Singapore that need to be buried once and for all. Let us get into it. Point 1. Myth. Singapore is boring. People back in Britain would say to me, "Oh, Singapore, is that not just one big airport with a city attached?" Mate, no, not even close. Singapore has some of the most electrifying nightlife, cultural festivals, street art scenes, and underground food culture of anywhere I have ever visited on this entire planet. The city transforms completely at night. Clark Quay buzzes with energy. Haji Lane is packed with color and character. Little India during Deepavali is one of the most visually stunning experiences of my life, and the art scene here is genuinely world-class. The Esplanade hosts hundreds of performances every single year. Street festivals shut down entire neighborhoods. Gardens by the Bay alone would take you a full day to properly explore. Boredom is simply not possible here. There is always something happening, always a new neighborhood to discover, always a new dish to try around the next corner. Singapore has soul, and once you find it, you will never want to leave. Point 2. Myth. Singapore is insanely expensive. Yes, Singapore regularly ranks among the most expensive cities in the world. And yes, if you are eating at rooftop restaurants and staying in five-star hotels, your wallet will feel it. But here is what nobody tells you. Hawker centers exist, and they are absolutely everywhere. I am talking about incredible, freshly cooked food for as little as 3 to 5 Singapore dollars a plate. That is roughly £1.70 to £2.80. Chicken rice, laksa, char kway teow, roti prata at midnight, all of it outstanding, all of it cheap. Public transport here is efficient, clean, and genuinely affordable. The MRT, which is the metro system, will take you almost anywhere on the island for under $2. Many museums offer free entry, parks are free, the entire city is walkable. If you are smart about how you spend, Singapore is absolutely manageable. The expensive reputation comes from comparing luxury costs. The everyday reality, particularly for residents, is far more reasonable than people assume. Point 3. Myth. Singapore has no culture. This one genuinely makes me laugh because it could not be further from the truth. Singapore is one of the most culturally rich places I have ever stepped foot in. You have 4 official languages here: English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. 4 distinct ethnic communities, each with their own festivals, cuisines, temples, mosques, churches, and traditions, all coexisting in one tiny island nation. Chinatown is not a tourist trap. It is a living, breathing neighborhood where elderly men play chess on the street and traditional medicine shops sit beside modern cafes. Little India smells of jasmine and spices, and the sound of Tamil music floats out from every doorway. The Malay Heritage Center in Kampong Glam tells stories going back centuries. Singapore's identity is layered, complex, and constantly evolving. It is a country that has managed to hold on to its roots while simultaneously sprinting into the future. Calling it cultureless is not just wrong, it is disrespectful to millions of people and their rich histories. Ah, yes, the famous Singapore fine myth. Chewing gum is banned, flushing the toilet will land you in prison, and simply breathing wrong will cost you $500. Right, let us calm this down dramatically. Yes, Singapore has laws, clear, enforced laws. And honestly, that is a large part of why this city functions so beautifully. But the idea that you are constantly at risk of being fined for everyday behavior is wildly overblown. I walk around every single day without a fine. I have eaten on the MRT by accident once, quickly stopped, and that was that. Nobody dragged me to court. Chewing gum is restricted from sale, not banned from possession or consumption in all circumstances. The laws here largely target genuinely harmful or antisocial behavior, littering, vandalism, drug trafficking. The result is that Singapore is immaculately clean and extraordinarily safe. That is not oppression. That is simply a society that takes civic responsibility seriously. And coming from London, I actually find it rather refreshing. Point 5. Myth. Singapore is just a stopover city. So many people treat Singapore as nothing more than a transit point on the way to Bali or Bangkok. And every single time I hear this, I feel personally offended on behalf of this magnificent city. Singapore deserves at minimum 5 to 7 days of dedicated exploration, and many people who come for a stopover end up extending their stay because they cannot believe how much there is to see and do. Sentosa Island alone could fill 2 days. Universal Studios, the beach clubs, the cable car, the immersive art museums. Then you have the Singapore Zoo, which is genuinely one of the finest zoos in the world. The night safari, the river wonders. Pulau Ubin, a tiny island off the northeast coast, feels like stepping back into old Singapore. The Southern Ridges Walk takes you through rainforest canopy with incredible city views. Singapore rewards slow exploration. Every single neighborhood has its own personality, its own food, its own history. Treating it as a stopover is one of the biggest travel mistakes a person can make. Point 6. Myth. The food is bland. I genuinely cannot believe this myth exists. Singapore has been named one of the world's greatest food destinations more times than I can count. And after living here, I understand completely why. The food is extraordinary. It is bold, layered, complex, and endlessly varied. Laksa is a spiced coconut noodle soup with enough depth to make your eyes water with joy. Chili crab is a national treasure. Hainanese chicken rice sounds simple, but achieving that silky poached chicken and fragrant rice requires years of skill to perfect. Roti prata, fresh off the griddle with a cup of teh tarik, is one of the finest breakfasts on planet Earth. And the diversity is staggering. You can eat authentic Peranakan food, then walk 10 minutes and have South Indian banana leaf rice, then finish the evening with Cantonese roast duck. Hawker centers are essentially open-air food universities where you taste the stories of generations. Singapore food is not just good, it is among the very best in the world. Full stop. Point 7. Myth. Singapore is too hot to enjoy. Yes, Singapore sits just 1 degree north of the equator. Yes, it is hot and humid essentially every single day of the year. Temperatures hover between 28 and 33 degrees Celsius most of the time, and the humidity can feel intense, particularly when you first arrive. But here is what the myth ignores completely. You adapt. Within 2 to 3 weeks of living here, your body genuinely adjusts. Locals move at a comfortable pace. Every indoor space is air-conditioned to a borderline Arctic degree. Malls, MRT stations, offices, restaurants, all gloriously cool. And the heat has genuine beauty to it. Tropical rainstorms sweep through in the late afternoon and cool everything down in minutes. The greenery is extraordinary precisely because of the climate. Singapore is the world's greenest city by many measures, with more trees per square kilometer than almost anywhere on Earth. The heat is part of the experience. Dress smart, stay hydrated, embrace the warmth, and you will be absolutely fine. Point 8. Myth: Singaporeans are unfriendly. This myth likely comes from the fact that Singaporeans are not typically the type to make loud small talk with strangers on public transport. And honestly, coming from Britain, that suits me just fine. But unfriendly? Absolutely not. In my experience, Singaporeans are among the most genuinely helpful people I have ever encountered. Ask someone for directions, and they will walk you there themselves. Get into trouble, and strangers will step in without hesitation. The local community spirit is deep and real, particularly within HDB estates, which are the public housing blocks where roughly 80% of the population lives. Neighbors look out for each other. Elderly residents are respected and included. And once a Singaporean considers you a friend, that friendship is loyal, warm, and long-lasting. The reserved public manner is cultural, not cold. Take the time to actually connect with locals rather than observing them from a distance, and you will discover some of the most generous and welcoming people you have ever met. Point 9. Myth: Singapore has no nature. People picture Singapore as nothing but glass towers, shopping centers, and urban concrete, and they completely miss the fact that this island is breathtakingly green. Singapore has invested enormously in integrating nature into its urban fabric, and the results are genuinely remarkable. The Central Catchment Nature Reserve covers over 2,000 hectares of primary rainforest right in the middle of the city. MacRitchie Reservoir offers jungle trails, wildlife, and a treetop walkway with views that do not feel remotely urban. Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve is a proper mangrove ecosystem, with migratory birds arriving from as far as Siberia each year. Bukit Timah Hill is one of the most biodiverse patches of primary forest on the planet relative to its size. Wild monkeys, monitor lizards, otters, and hornbills all live freely within the city boundaries. Singapore actively calls itself a city in a garden, and that is not marketing language. It is a genuine philosophy built into every level of urban planning and policy. The nature here will surprise you completely. Point 10. Myth: Singapore has no history. Singapore is often described as a young country with no real history, and this could not be more wrong. Yes, Singapore only became an independent nation in 1965, but the island has been a significant port and settlement for centuries before that. Its Malay name, Singapura, meaning Lion City, dates back to the 13th century. It was a major trading hub long before Sir Stamford Raffles arrived in 1819. The colonial period brought extraordinary transformation. Waves of immigration from China, India, and across Southeast Asia, all leaving permanent marks on the culture, architecture, and identity of this place. Then came the brutal Japanese occupation during the Second World War, which shaped the Singaporean psyche in profound ways. The road to independence was complicated, painful, and remarkable. The story of Singapore going from a third-world city to a first-world nation within a single generation is one of the most extraordinary governance stories in modern history. Singapore has a rich, complex, and deeply human history. It deserves to be studied, celebrated, and remembered properly. So there you have it, 10 myths about Singapore, completely shattered by a British bloke who was brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to actually move here and find out the truth for himself. Look, Singapore is not perfect. Nowhere is. The cost of living at the top end is genuinely high. The pace of life can be relentless, and yes, the rules are real and enforced. But this tiny island nation of roughly 5.9 million people has achieved something that most countries 10 times its size have failed to do. It built a safe, clean, multicultural, world-class society from almost nothing in less than 60 years. That is extraordinary. If you have been sleeping on Singapore because of the myths, it is time to wake up. Book the trip. Eat the hawker food. Walk through the rainforest in the middle of the city. Talk to the locals. Let this place surprise you the way it surprised me. Singapore is not what you think it is. It is so much better. I will see you in the next one.